Recording. And I want to welcome all of you to 7 Things You Should Do to Be a Thought Leader in Your Industry. And we have Susan Harrow with PRSecrets.com with us today. She spoke for us before, and we're very happy to have her back with us. She has a lot of great information to share with you today. I just want to talk a little bit about SCORE as we have a few more people that are still joining, but I want to tell you what we do. We offer training in the form of workshops and webinars. Most are webinars, but we do have a few in-person workshops we're starting to work in. So I do encourage you to check out the website or watch for the newsletter. The most important thing that SCORE does, however, is the mentoring. Our mentoring is always free. Our mentors are volunteers that want to give back. They come to us with a variety of experiences and knowledge that they can share with you. Who do we work with? We work with those that are trying to decide if having a small business is for them. We are working with those that are in the process of putting together that business plan, trying to figure out what business structure they are. And we're working with those that are already in business. Perhaps they're looking for marketing strategies. Perhaps they are looking to figure out how to grow their business, or they're struggling with tracking their finances. You name it, we're there to work with you. SCORE is a national organization. So if we don't have someone at the local level, which is pretty hard to do because we have a lot of great people with a lot of different things to share, but we can reach out to that national database to assist you. A beginning session will be about getting to know you and what your goals are, and they will help create a plan or a path for you to follow to achieve that goal. You might even walk away with a little homework until the next session. And oftentimes our mentors will invite others to work with them as a team, which is a wonderful experience to have as well. If you want a mentor, you can go to the individual chapter websites here. You can also just simply go to score.org and put in your zip code, and they'll help you get to the right chapter, or you can put a note into chat and I will have someone reach out to you. I definitely encourage you to do that. Or if you already have one and it's been a while, they'd love to hear how things are going and have that follow up. We are going to stick mostly with chat today. We're going to try and have this be a little bit interactive. And at the end, if there's time, then we will allow folks to raise their hand to be unmuted to talk with Susan out loud. So let me stop my share. And I'm going to bring it back around, and I'd like to introduce you all to Susan Harrow.
Everyone, there was an almost 10-foot tall Buddha in Thailand that was 5.5 tons, and the monastery was moving it. And when they were moving it, one monk discovered he saw a little spot of gold underneath the mud, and he started chipping away at it. And what he found was underneath this golden Buddha was solid gold, 250 tons of solid gold. When the Burmese army had invaded Thailand, they covered up this solid gold Buddha with 100% mud and clay to protect it. And then when that monk started chiseling away and got all of the clay to fall away, they could see this shining gold, fantastic Buddha. And I think what happens to a lot of us is that we cover up our gold. We cover up our gold with our experiences, our traumas, the things that happen to us. And I see it as my job to uncover your gold so you can shine in the media spotlight as a thought leader and expert, whatever your aspirations are. And so just to get used to acknowledging ourselves, I'd like us to put into the chat, what is golden about you? To start to tell the truth about ourselves and get used to saying great things about ourselves and actually absorbing it in. Because sometimes I think it's super hard to absorb things in. We take in the negative really easily, but we don't always take in the positive. So let's pop into the chat, what is golden about you? And I'll start, and Teresa will share as well. So what's golden about me is that I see people instantly, for who they are. And I can bring that out to the fullest, oftentimes what they don't see in themselves. And this is gold for being a media guest. Teresa?
Well, I like to think that I am organized and I can help others. And I help others, especially at SCORE, stay on track to serve our clients.
That's really lovely. We're going to circle back because there's a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to circle back and then read some afterwards, but I'm going to keep going for just a little bit. Here's the thing about covering our gold. It's a national epidemic. There are one study showed that 90% of all people have self-doubt and imposter syndrome. So that's something that people are experiencing consistently. Now, that may not be you, and we all experience it sometime or another, but part of shining our gold as a thought leader is to really be able to work with that and let that go so we can do what we came here to do and give our gifts that only we can. So if there's one thing I'd like you to be devoted to after this training, it is to be you now, which is how thought leaders become thought leaders and really distinguish themselves from others. So what is a thought leader? It's not so much about being original or having original thoughts as putting together things in an original way that people resonate with. And thought leadership marketing comes down to packaging your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, experiences, and your thoughts in a way that makes you media worthy and really worth listening to. And when I work with clients to become thought leaders, I really focus on the 3 Ps. 1 is personality, 2 is positioning, and 3 is performance. So your personality, that's who you are. It's your presence. It's your we discover the stories, the experiences, the expertise that sets you apart from others, and also your accessibility to your core audience. And then number 2 is positioning. This is how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace and in the culture today. And number 3 is performance, how you deliver your genius in all the different mediums, TV, radio, presentations, panels, and podcast, print, social media, all of the different mediums, like really how you are relaxed. That's one of the key things that I think is super difficult for people, is to be relaxed and to be themselves. So it's personality, positioning, and performance. And what can thought leadership do for you? In short, it's to be a regular guest and also to command substantial fees. That can be speaking, book contract, any kind of consulting contracts. And we'll cover the 7 things that you should do to go on a path to be respected, heard, reverberated. And I'll share case studies of my clients and also case studies of some famous people that you've heard of. And toward the end, I'll invite you to go deeper with me if you choose. And if not, no worries, you'll get a tremendous amount from this training today. And by the way, this is just the second time that I've done this webinar. So you'll see me looking down at my notes. And by the way, if you are a media guest and you need to bring statistics or something new, it's perfectly okay to bring them down into your lap and take a look or put them on the table, especially when there's breaking news with new statistics. You'll notice that sometimes on the news where people have like little note cards or they often have a teleprompter, but not when it's spontaneous and not for the guests, right? There's teleprompters for the news people, but not for you. So those are some of the things that you can do and not feel good about yourself doing. Oh, and also, as we move through this together, please share your ahas in the chat along the way. That way we can really start to pool our knowledge together and see what rises to the top, what's important to you. And then I'll open up for Q&A and wrap up our time with a personal story. So one thing to note is that just 24% of news sources are women. And I aim to change that right now. Welcome all men as well, of course. And especially since it's International Women's Day today and International Women's History Month today, this whole month. So really, we need more women's voices in the media today. 24%. That is tiny, tiny, tiny. And the other good news, I mean, it's not good news, but the other news that there's a lot of opportunity for women, okay, to grow in that. But there's a big portal for thought leaders right now, given the economic uncertainty. A lot of CEOs and a lot of founders and a lot of entrepreneurs are focusing on the business. They're focusing on projecting their revenue. And they're not necessarily focused on becoming a thought leader and being in the news. So right now, whatever you're capable of, which you don't even know yet, but getting out there as a thought leader starts to expand what you're capable of. And that's where there's that opportunity now and a little gap in the culture that wasn't necessarily there before. So this is an ideal time for you. And there's also a shift toward mindfulness, meaning, and satisfaction in both business and in life. So there's opportunities here for intentionality and innovation, which a lot of you out there are innovators. And now I'm going to take a quick look in the chat. Somebody, wait a second. Angela said, "I do not like all eyes on me," but that's not a. I'm not sure if that's a great golden quality. Think of something that is wonderful about you. Oh, great! Look at all these wonderful things. So, you're welcome for my time. Positive. Joe says positive. Nancy says instinct. Eva says, "I help people with their greatness and create a vision." Fabulous. Maxwell says analytical. All these are fantastic qualities. Karen, a source for guidance. Joanne, I'm great at connecting and seeing a business need. That's fantastic. Palace says creative problem solving. Patty says, "What's golden about me is that I have been through what I teach. I know there is good in everyone, and sometimes we can't see it in ourselves." That's so true. Jeanette, I help motivate and push transformational behavior. And Lenny, I'm an innovator. Oh, I was just talking about that. I love coming up with new products and refining the existing ones to be effective as possible and beautiful at the same time. Oh, I love that. That's really wonderful. Paul says, "I see people's ability to draw on their experience, knowledge, and creativity to solve problems and make good decisions and accomplish their goals." And thank you for everyone for participating. I'm going to just move on for the sake of time. So I so appreciate your participation. And so pop in the ahas whenever you hear them, when something rises to the top, or I call them like the jewels. Number one is to establish a command presence so people pay attention and respect you for any meeting, media appearance, presentation. It's about commanding yourself. And the first step to that is mindset. And the mindset to begin with as a thought leader, I love this saying from Shonda Rhimes, who has created some of the most successful TV programs in history, Grey's Anatomy and Scandal, among many others. And she said, "Believe that you belong in every room." She said, even though she was at Dartmouth and she was in rooms with frat boys, she felt like she belonged. Even when she was in Hollywood with all white men and she was the only woman of color, she felt like she belonged. So the mindset that you belong everywhere, anywhere, that you belong to yourself first, but in any room, before you enter that room, even if lots of times I think we don't feel like we belong and we're really scared and we feel like we're the outsider. And it's to shift that mindset to you belong. And one thing that I've learned, I'm a black belt in Aikido, which is Japanese martial arts, and I was a teaching tennis pro. And one of the things that I learned, I think I had learned this long ago in tennis, in terms of psyching out, because so much of tennis is psychological. And I think I had actually learned this then, but didn't really know what it was. But when I started doing martial arts, it was really codified. And that is, before we step onto the mat, we expand our energy. So we're going to do this together, because this is something that you can do before any media appearance, any presentation, any kind of meeting in person or virtual. And it's this. So before we step onto the mat, and if you can start to do this and practice this every day, that would be ideal. You imagine yourself golden. So you can imagine yourself the golden Buddha or a sun or a chalice or whatever that is to you. And what we do is we imagine light above me, light below me, light to the right of me, light to the left of me, light inside of me, light before me, light behind me. So sides, top, bottom, everything. And we can do it even in one whoosh, light expand in all directions at once. And you can even imagine your body's made of stars or golden little lights, whatever the imaginative process is for you. But this is felt instantly by anyone when they're first meeting you. So we do it on the Aikido mat because we're extending our energy in all directions so we can control the situation, not controlling the other person. We're really controlling ourselves before we even touch the other person. We have expanded our energy. So let's all do that together. It just takes a second. So imagine yourself, light above you, light below you, love, love, light to the right of you, light to the left of you, back and front, all sides. Light expand. Oh, the one thing I wanted to say, I forgot one step. One thing we can do is taking a breath in, hold it in the heart, draw it up to the top of your head. So if you take a breath in, bring it up to the top of your head. When you light expand, you can let that breath out. I think it's easier that way. And when you start to practice that every single day, you can do it on command. And that's what we want. We want you to be able to do light expand whenever you do any kind of media appearance or meeting or anything that's important to you. And I'd love to hear what your experience of that is in the chat. And I'm going to go forward and continue on, and then I'll take a look at the chat in just a few minutes. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is sometimes when we don't feel ready, like even if we don't feel ready to do that, what research shows, because people say, oh, I don't have the confidence or I'm not ready. Here's the thing. Competence breeds confidence. So it's not the other way around. It's not we feel confident and we do it. It's we feel competent and we start to do the thing that's the challenge. And then we gain the confidence. So it's actually reversed. And research shows this out. So as we start to build our mental and our mental and muscle memory, we begin to grow that confidence and we build a self-trust loop. So thinking about anybody who thinks they're not ready is to start just to do it. And I think oftentimes, we're held back by fear, right? Like we don't know if we can do it because we've never done it. And so it's kind of an oxymoron. You don't know if you can do it until you start to do it. And that's the thing that I want to suggest to you is that whenever you have an opportunity, one of my connections just wrote to me on LinkedIn. She got her first TV appearance, and she was so excited about that. This is the first time. And, it's always scary. And it is still for me. I mean, even doing these webinars, I've been doing this for 33 years. It's still scary. I still get nervous. I can't eat. That's just a fact. I'm still excited. I still love doing it, but I have great anxiety about it, but I still do it because I love the connection, because I love meeting people. So it's like, I put that, yes, the anxiety is worth it to be able to meet all of you. Number 2 is, I want to take a look. Here, so 10 new messages. So let's take a look. I'm going to zoom to the bottom. Fake it till you make it. No, I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I really believe in taking those incremental incremental steps to begin to develop. Like when I first started in Aikido, like I was the worst person in the room, and it was with constant practice and iteration that I grew those skills. And that is what we do. It's constant. It's not 10,000 times doing the same thing. It's 10,000 iterations. And that's what happens when you're training for a media interview, is that you do it. And then we look at what did you do well and what do you want to shift for next time? And then you do the next thing and you do the next thing and you do the next thing. So it's constant practice and iteration. It's just like when I was training for tennis and Aikido, it's the same thing. It's like when I was training at a tennis camp, you had to hit 100 balls in a row to move to the next level into a net, into a bounce back net. It had to be in the center of the net and it had to be 100 times in a row. If you were 99 and you missed it, you had to start all over again. So that's the kind of practice that I'm talking about. So let's see, happy to connect with like-minded people. Oh, I'm not sure. I was asking about your experiences I think these are still your experience with the feeling golden. So I'm not sure we got responses for that, Teresa. Did we? If I wanted to see how that felt to you, what that was like to you. So if you can pop into the chat what it was like to you to do the light expand. It felt expansive. Great, Paul says. Yeah, thank you. So that's what I was looking for. And we'll look at those questions that you have for me later and everything. If you can put them in at the end, that would be super great. So we don't have to scroll through all of it. So if you do have questions, put them, down there and just don't hit the thing that puts them in until the very end. Clarity of thought and mind. I love light expansion, centering techniques, calming. Thank you. That's great. Beautiful. Number 2, set up a messaging strategy before you contact the media that makes you stand out from your competitors. Essentially, what we're talking about is developing your sound bites. What are sound bites? They're stories, statistics, facts, studies, research, vignettes, and anecdotes, analogies, acronyms, all of those things. And you really want to have a mix of those. Why do we do that? Because you can ruin your reputation and brand in a moment. You can't take back anything that you say or do now in this digital domain. Everything is cataloged via LexisNexis and Dow Jones. So any journalist can go back and see anything that you've said that's in print and reprint it. And then now, even if you take down a video, what we've seen is that it can still be accessed, right? So you can burn your brand in a second. So this kind of practice and preparation for media is essential in our digital age. So how do we do that? First, we set an intention, we give it attention, and then we take action. Intention, attention, action. The 4 questions I ask every client to create the foundation for their media that has a real effect on their business. I'm going to share that with you, and you can all ponder this. Is number 1, what's your deepest intention? How do you want to choose? How do you want to serve? And number 2 is, what do you want for yourself? And we look at professionally, personally, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. We'll look at everything, because when you start to go out to the media, your world just opens up, and the possibility of connection, which with famous people or people well known or people who you dream of connecting with, and opportunities and partnerships, all of those things open up. And I'm going to share some stories very soon about what happened with my clients when they did this. The last thing is, what do you want your audience to do? What action do you want them to take? Do you want them to fund your venture? Do you want them to give to your charity? Do you want them to buy your course, hire you for speaking? Whatever that is, we look at that very specifically, because that's woven in seamlessly to your patter in a way that's very organic and that doesn't sound sleazy or salesy, but it's woven in to whatever media appearance or wherever you're showing up is. One telehealth doctor came to me. She had already been getting booked in the media by her PR firm, and she said, I don't know what I'm doing. My messaging is willy-nilly, helter-skelter, and I'm just out there saying whatever comes into my head. And so we went through that process and started getting deeply intentional about it. So she wanted to promote telehealth, that it was available to everyone. And most of us don't even know all of the things that are available now to us. And when she started telling me some things, like you could have a virtual doctor listening to your heartbeat, through the computer, I remember being like, wow, I had no idea. So we started really developing her key messaging. So no matter what she was interviewed for example, she was interviewed about sunscreen for kids and for babies. So we can still weave in how telehealth and how, if your baby does get sunburned, how you could access a doctor, online if you can't rush them, because we don't want to take our babies to the hospital with COVID. So things like that. So we talked about how to weave in her big vision, which is telehealth for everyone, into every single media appearance. What did it get her? Well, it once we dialed that messaging in, she really and it's different, by the way, for a podcast, a panel, a presentation, a TV interview. She got some real results. She got the cover of Harper's Bazaar, a cover of a parenting magazine, a national parenting magazine. She was invited to a charity where she could connect with celebrities, a charity that was super close to her heart. And now she is quoted on podcasts, print, TV, booked monthly in the media. And a byproduct, which she told me, is she said, I'm now considered an influencer on social media. That was completely unintentional, but she's showing up regularly with short videos on Instagram, and she's developing a really big and loyal following that way as well. What is typically in, so what did she have? Clear intention, focused attention, right action, right messaging. So clear intention, focused attention, right action, right messaging. What's typically in a messaging strategy that you can prepare for? So we talked about what sound bites are, and now let's talk about how to use them. So you would want to have within that messaging strategy some type of advice, of education or entertainment, success stories of clients or customers that relate to the point that you're making. You can't just blurt out success stories. It has to relate to the point. And then personal stories, so we feel like we know you. And that's super important in today's environment, because more and more we want to know you. And to help you, okay, so the messaging strategy for what you're going to say, you also need a headline and a hook to get the media's attention, so they open your email. And emails need to be super short. And I have quite a lot of resources for you on my website at prsecrets.com. And today I've shared with Teresa, she's going to put in the chat, I've also sharing with you a PDF with lots of other resources. I'm calling it 10 Fabulous Resources for Becoming a Thought Leader. It's at prsecrets.com/TLW10, like Thought Leader Webinar 10. So prsecrets.com/T as in Tom, L as in Lucy, W as in Webinar 10. And Teresa's going to pop that up into the chat as well, so you can download that at your leisure. And there are fabulous resources on there for becoming a thought leader, most of them free. And so the other thing that I wanted to ask you, and that Teresa's going to pop up in the chat, is if you got tapped for a media appearance today, would you have your messaging and your sound bites ready? So yes, no, partly. So if you're tapped for a media appearance today, would you have your messaging or sound bites ready? Yes, no, partly. And then I'll check back in a few minutes. Oh, that looks so nice, Teresa. Thank you for that. Somebody says, I think Nancy said not even close. Beverly said no. So are they, I don't know how the poll works over there, but I'm seeing it on the side here, Teresa. Okay, so absolutely something to work at. I've done a podcast, so I'm partly prepared. Yeah. So one podcast is a fantastic start, and I recommend you do as many as you possibly can. Podcasts are a great way to start, by the way. So because you have anywhere from, typically it's 30 minutes to an hour to start to really work and practice on that. With TV, obviously, it's way shorter. TV is the hardest medium. You have 2 of 4 minutes, and it's back and forth. So you actually have 2 of those 4 minutes. And if somebody's chatty, you have less than 2 minutes. So that obviously takes a tremendous amount of skill. And radio is pretty condensed as well. So the easiest to start with is podcast. And print, while it sounds really easy, isn't necessarily easy, because you want to make sure that you're quoted accurately. So you want to make sure you're not bamboozled into saying something that you wish you hadn't, because everything's on record. And I'm going to continue to check back. Oh, good. Okay, so that's on. Okay, so number 3 is become an original by packaging current hot trends, ideas, and concepts, and prevent copycats. Because right now in the culture today, everybody's stealing from everybody else. So you need to be first, and you need to protect your content, your patents, your copyrights, your trademarks, all of those things. And that's not necessarily super easy. And I'm going to share with you a methodology to do that. The first thing is to curate research, data, and statistics, and put it into a unique context, put it into, essentially it's giving it your spin. So the research doesn't have to be your own. You can take research together and start to analyze it and extract, curate what is important from that research. Many thought leaders like Brene Brown, Adam Grant, Susan Cain, they do their own research. But someone like James Clear, Atomic Habits, he took BJ Fogg's research on tiny habits. He took BJ's class, and then he combined it with his own experience and his own blog. And he did some of his own research, but it was really based on BJ Fogg's work. And he became a thought leader. And by the way, I then trained BJ Fogg, who wrote his book way later than Atomic Habits, because he was so busy, like working with like Nike and all of these other really big clients on that he hadn't had time to write a book. And James Clear is really known more so in the general populace than BJ Fogg is, who created the Tiny Habits, and also Atomic Habits might be a better name too, right? Like you tell me what's better, Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits, you know? So they both have their positive spin. So the next point, oh, by the way, for BJ Fogg, I was tasked to media train him to make his book a New York Times bestseller, which it did become. Yeah. So the next thing you can do is to jump on a trend, buck a trend, or create a trend. Look into your crystal ball and predict the future. So as a thought leader, you need to be ahead of the curve, not what's going on in the culture today, but what will go on in the culture today in the future. I just heard Susan Cain, who's the author of Quiet, talking about her new book, which is called Bittersweet, beautiful title, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole, saying, and I'm quoting her, "You don't want to write about what people are talking about already. I always think that the purpose of writing books and reading books really is to encounter the deep truths that people don't feel comfortable talking about at the grocery store or with their coworkers until they're given permission to do it. That's what a book can do, and that's why I love them." Predict the future. Isn't that beautiful? I love that she said that gives us the expansiveness to speak about things that we didn't feel like we had permission for. And thought leaders bring up hard questions. They bring up difficult things to talk about. They open a conversation. They expand our minds in ways that possibly we hadn't explored before. So even before you write that book, or you never do for that matter, but thought leaders do write books. The role of the thought leader is to offer also insights to the pressing issues of our day, and to encourage us to perceive or think about things in a new way, to either begin or continue a conversation. And you can experiment by doing, because the test is in the marketplace. We sometimes don't know what's going to land with people. So you really need to test and see what sticks. As I was a publicist before, so that means I booked people in the media, and the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the Today Show, all of that. And sometimes what I thought was the best hook, it wasn't. So you put it out there, and if nothing comes back and people are interested, you try something else, and you try something else. You try a different angle, a different tact, a different way of packaging it, until it resonates with the audience. One of my clients is a cybersecurity and DEI, diversity and oh God, I forgot what that stands for, an expert, DEI expert. And I started media training her first. And yeah, I started inclusion. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. That's one thing I love, is that you can ask your audience for help. I just heard of Louis Capaldi, who's a musician. He's got some Grammy Award-winning songs, and he has Tourette syndrome and forgot some lyrics on stage. And the audience knew the song and helped him and sang the song for him until he could get back on track. And I just thought, that's just so, people are wonderful, right? So we started media training her first on that. And then she started getting booked for speaking engagements. So we had to sort of switch tracks. And what we found was that her most popular topic was networking for introverts. Why? First of all, she works with women in tech, right? Cybersecurity, and she's a woman, Gen Z or millennial. But anyway, oftentimes people she's working with are older too. So we are now like a culture of introverts. Because of COVID and the pandemic, we have become much more introverted. So it's not just being popular with tech women, and it's starting to be popular with everyone because we're having to relearn our skills to become more easily connected with people in person because we've kind of forgotten how. So that's the topic that's like risen to the top, and every podcast person and panels, everybody wants that topic from her. Number 4 is to cultivate opinions that others value and seek. So we want you as a thought leader to have opinions. They don't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to have the answers, but thought leaders ask the most important questions, and they share their point of view on why we should be asking those questions. And they inspire deep inquiry. They inspire deep inquiry. Fred Rogers said, in times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts, and to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers. He's one of the wisest people I know, Fred Rogers. One of my clients, Martin, was a wealth manager, and he was afraid to speak out. He wanted the opportunity. He had lots of important things to say. His PR firm was booking, this PR firm booked, he was with I think it's a $30 billion company. So the PR firm was booking every spokesperson in the company nationwide. And he wanted to start to do TV and start to be a thought leader. And what happened was he was absolutely terrified. And the other thing was that he only had one chance. The PR person said, I'm booking you on one TV show. If it doesn't go well, that's it. That's it. So stakes were really high. And so I media trained him. We really worked on his points. We worked on relaxation, calming down, what to do, how to handle unexpected questions, how to handle, sometimes, we didn't know whether you'd be standing up or sitting down. We want to look at the whole thing because you want to be prepared for everything. Me, I'm short, I'm 5'2", so sometimes they put you on these high stools and I can't balance my legs, so you have to think about all of the logistics as well as preparing your questions, and relaxation is most important. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing. So we prepared, and he went on TV and he did brilliantly well. And so the PR person kept booking him over and over and over again. And he became so great and so innovative that he became a spokesperson, not only for his branch, but for all of the company. And the national headquarters of the company began using his information to disseminate that all throughout the company. And then he got invited to more panels. So we planned for panels because that's a separate skill, how to manage people in your own time on a panel, whether it's virtual or in person, and presentations. So I worked with him on presentations, on panels, on that media training, but his career expanded. And he also filled up his entire roster of clients. So he was completely full. So that's the other thing that can happen, obviously, in terms of what happens with your business, right? So it happens in the media, and then it's reflected back on selling your courses, your products, your services, whatever that is that you have. Which brings me to talking about having a press kit and a sizzle reel so the media can vet you. And one of the things that I focus on in the guide that you'll see on your PDF is called 7 Days to Get on Local and National TV. So I've simplified it down so it's really 7 days. You can do one thing a day, or for people who are speedy, you can go through the whole thing and do it, but it's doing micro things. So by day 7, you can book yourself on TV, and that resource is on your PDF that Teresa has popped up there. Why do I give you that? Because thought leaders are on TV. Thought leaders are on TV. That's the quickest way to get out there and to gain the most credibility in the fastest way. Because when people see you on TV, you've been vetted through that higher source, which is the hardest media to get on. And so your credibility skyrockets instantly. And then, of course, you can put that onto your website and your sizzle reel and all of that. So what is a sizzle reel? That is just the highlights of all of your speaking. So it's you can have a speaking reel for speaking specifically, but you can also have one for media, which can include some speaking and virtual things, virtual presentations, as well as you want to kind of include all of your media. But we really need to see you on video to vet you for TV. Because that's also a quick path to not having to have an in-depth pre-interview. All the top TV shows are going to do a pre-interview anyway, and so are the top radios, even the top podcasts. I've got a pre-interview later today. I get pre-interviewed even before I get booked on the podcast, 99% of the time, pre-interview. So you have to pass that pre-interview to get on the more prestigious podcasts and programs before you can actually get on. So that leads us to have a philosophy. Your audience wants to know not only what you believe, but what you believe in. Edelman did a survey and found that 58% of people will buy or advocate for brands based on their beliefs or values, especially millennials, Gen Z. So if you are marketing to them, they're really focused on your values, what you believe in, who you are. Do you represent your brand and your company accurately? And do the values go throughout the company and throughout your product, right? And your audience wants that philosophy that really dives into their deepest longings, those things that they feel they haven't that expressed directly in a way that they can understand. And you really need to zenify things. I call it zenifying down, because some people go, I don't want to make things dumbed down. And Albert Einstein said, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. And that's the zenification down of your ideas, which is probably one of the hardest things. But it's now imperative to have that woven into your thought leadership. Brene Brown is a really good example of that, because in her media appearance, this was on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, she was talking about her daughter who had been in class and she was doing an art project, and the teacher said to her, "You're messy." And the teacher said, "I really know whose daughter this is by her response." And her response was, "I'm not messy. I've just made a mess." And Brown told that story to illustrate a point about self-talk and not calling ourselves names or saying derogatory things. It's to focus on behavior instead of being. So it shows that Brown is really walking her talk. That's what you want to do too, by transmitting her values and behaviors. They're transmitted to her daughters and a sense of who she is. And during every media appearance, you want to make sure your philosophy comes through loud and clear. And so you want to have a story or a vignette or an example, so your audience really have a sense of who you are. And it should shine through your stories in a natural way. One of my favorite sayings is by Gandhi: "My life is my message." I really feel like when everything you do, say, are, and think, from your words to your website to your presence, everything is in alignment, then everything else comes into alignment. So your offer then resonates with the audience that you want. If one thing is off and the look and feel of you isn't in sync with that, people sense that. But when it is all in sync, that's when the wonderful things happen. Number 6 is spearhead a movement. Oh, I want to put in the second poll. So where would you rank yourself on the thought leader meter? Number one, I haven't been featured in the media. Number two, I've been featured but haven't gotten the results I want. And number three, I'm well known, but I want to continue my thought to grow my thought leadership. So pop that in. I'm going to go through spearhead a movement, and then we'll take a look back. A movement can start with something as simple as a bracelet or something as complicated as decriminalizing addiction. There was a Midwestern minister named Will Bowen, and he noticed that there was a lot of complaining on his churchgoers. And so he devised that he would create this purple bracelet. You would put it on your wrist, and he said, I'd like you to try to go 21 days without complaining. And it's not an easy task, right? So you put the bracelet on your wrist, and if you complained, you have to move it to the other wrist and start over. So 21 consecutive days, you need to not complain. He ordered a bunch of those bracelet-like wristbands, and he placed that large order, and he said, I want a complaint-free world. He gave the bracelet to everyone in his congregation and said, take my challenge and notice when you start to complain. And that those 21 days. Oh, great. Leave that poll up there if you wouldn't mind for a minute. And I'm actually going to take a look at it before I go into my second story. He said, I think most people can agree on two things. Number one, there's too much complaining in the world. And number two, the world is not the way we want it to be. And he said, those things are related. So we're busy griping about the way things are, and we're stuck with perpetuating problems. That story got picked up by the Kansas City Star, and then 35 other outlets, then People Magazine, then Oprah, then the New York Times and Newsweek. And then there was a bidding war for his book, which is an auction, a bidding war. So whoever bids the most money gets the book. And then 15 million people have now done his 21-day challenge. It changed their lives. So small idea, big idea, right? Like it's a small idea and a small thing, but it's really a big idea. And then I'm going to talk about one of my clients in just 1 minute, but I want to see where you're ranking. So I haven't been featured in the media is 48%. I've been featured and haven't gotten results is 37%. I'm well known, but want to continue is 15%. So most of you have not been yet featured in the media, and that's fine. You start where you are, and we start anywhere. And, you know, it's wonderful that you're here and you can start to know what's important to the media, so you can start to get yourself booked locally on the media. Oh, so the document that I was telling you about, the 7 steps to get on TV, is for both local and national. So it works for both, but I really focus on how you get booked locally so you can start the process, because you really don't want to book yourself nationally first. You need to get the practice and the feel. So local is great. And I also encourage you not just to try to get on TV, but to try to get in your local, if you have a regional magazine or you have a newspaper in the local area, that's what I would also try for. Specifically, if you have any kind of event, that's a really great time to talk about the news desk. But absolutely start with your local media and start to get used to what it feels like to be interviewed, whether it's in print or radio or TV. So my client is a journalist and author, David Sheff. He leads the way to decriminalizing addiction. He wrote the #1 New York Times bestselling book, Beautiful Boy, which got turned into a movie by Steve Carell, with Steve Carell. And then he wrote a second book called Clean. That's what I media trained him for, Overcoming Addiction and Ending America's Greatest Tragedy. So he wanted to decriminalize addiction. This was actually before the opioid crisis really was at full pitch. And he was going to Washington to try to change laws. And, you know, then he was booked on, I media trained him for The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, NPR's Fresh Air, Terry Gross. That's what every author and every person wants to get interviewed on. Terry Gross's Fresh Air, very hard. And he also was on the Today Show, the New York Times, PBS NewsHour, Time, MSNBC, and more. Very important topic, right? And also I media trained him for his speaking. So he wanted to, he already had substantial fees, but he wanted to improve his presentations and his presence, and even raise his fees higher. And that's what he did. And part of the great thing about doing those speaking engagements was that he got so many stories from families who had lost their children, mothers who had lost their children to addiction. And some of the stories were so potent. I mean, I was just crying during our media training because they were so sad. And I said, some of these are what you can use not only in the media, but when you take this to Washington, because it's stories that move us. It's the emotions that move us. And so really what we were media training to on those top TV shows is he just had such a short time to make his most important points, right? And so we really honed in on that. The media is interested in people who've inspired a movement. It shows the topic has enduring value. And spearheading a movement is really much more interesting to them than just claiming you have a big social following, right? Because it's showing that you have a popularity and that movement shifts thoughts into action to create lasting change. Number 7, and then I'm going to share this point. We're going to move into questions, and then I'm going to share a last story. Prepare for controversy so you can take a stand on important issues and maintain your equanimity. This is not for everyone. And your topic may not be controversial, but if you can find a controversial angle, then that is really media gold. And I'll tell you why. Because media loves to have, they love to have strong views on either side. Sadly, there's not a lot of room for subtlety, especially not in broadcast media, but it's one person on one side, one person on another side presenting your views. And the key here is severalfold. The first key is that when you have opinions, they need to be backed up by research, statistics, and facts, so you can hold your own. And then you need to be able to maintain that equanimity when there's intense emotion or verbal and emotional kind of interactions. Like I've media trained people for 60 minutes and for when Bill O'Reilly was on, because he would interrupt, shout, belittle, all of those things. So you need to be prepared for all of that, for aggressive, for intrusive, for intimate, for someone cutting you off and you not being able to speak, and how to interrupt. So all of those things are essential if your topic is controversial. Oh, so one of the things that I do with clients is called exposure therapy. It's cognitive. Is I role play all of those things with my clients, because then you can get used to what it actually feels like, because it's like super scary. It can be super scary. So another one of my clients, past clients, Dr. Sarah Gottfried, she's a Harvard-trained integrative physician. She's a science nerd. She would comment on, that a lot of women would go to the doctor and the doctor would say, it's in your imagination, perimenopausal, menopausal women. It's in your imagination. Here's a pill for depression or anxiety or whatever. And that wouldn't solve the root problem. And she dealt with women with those hormonal issues. And she said, you won't find the answer at the bottom of a pill. So she took a stand against the practice of those kind of physicians just saying, sweeping the women out of the office. And she advocates how to think, eat, and move. So I media trained her, and she's been in, the Oprah magazine 3 times. And Ricky Lake, she's done a TEDx talk. She partnered with Maria Shriver and other high-powered alliances. And then she has now sold out courses, and she's got a line of products that she also sells out. So, and 2 New York Times bestselling books. So I media trained her for the first one, and really all of everything that led up to that, which was setting the whole strategic plan to make it a New York Times bestseller and creating those strategic relationships and things like that to bolster her thought leadership. But the one thing I want to tell you about is that she started with more of a blog following. So she wasn't well known at first, but she started getting traction on her blog. And then she wrote that book, but the book isn't published for like a year or two, right? So we had time, we worked together for like 9 months to plan that book launch, right? To really groove in her thought leadership. And then the book starts to codify that thought leadership. She's actually written 4 books now. So now we're going to open for Q&A, and then I'm going to wrap up with a story. So pop your questions into the chat. And let's take a look and see if Kimmy says that's the same reason I taught my sons to curse when they were little, but sometimes I wonder if that was nuts. That's funny. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but that's funny. So pop your questions into the chat or raise your hand. And I'm going to just take a quick look over here.
If you use the raise hand icon, I can allow you to speak and ask your question out loud.
Yeah.
So just so that we're clear what you can do.
And Stephanie says, will there be a PDF available, all 7 of these listed? I didn't put those into the PDF, but you know what? You can take a look on my website under thought leadership, prsecrets.com / I'm not sure if it's just, take a look on the nav on my prsecrets.com, and I've listed all of the 7 steps. Yeah, that's great feedback. Maybe I'll put that into the PDF next time. So thank you. So see, when you put something out there and you're not sure what people want, right? Like I didn't know that, but that now seems obvious to me. But I didn't do it. I was putting in what I thought I was first. Oh, Paul says diversity, equity, inclusion. Thank you. There are many links and they're all embedded in the attached document. Is it
that's
definitely
just,
for you?
that's just me explaining to them what they're getting.
Yeah. So you
PDF.
have to download it and then click on it. So it's embedded.
Yeah.
But I want to make it pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
In reference to coaching your clients on how to react when interviews are bullying them.
That's the comment to the follow-up to the Totter.
Oh, okay. So do you work with all levels of business, such as startups or nonprofit? Oh, that's such a great question. Yes, I do. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm just a beginner. I've just started my business or as a hobby and I don't work with them. No, to me, the most important thing is not your level of where you are, but your willingness to do what you say you want to do and to move toward the goals that you set for yourself. And then we're both mutually responsible for moving you toward those goals. So it's a synchronistic relationship. I think, I hold you accountable, obviously, to say what you say you want, and we move you to those things. So,
okay. Nancy would like to ask her question out loud. I'm going to go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask your question, Nancy.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, this has been great. I'll keep it brief. I just started interviewing PR firms, and if you had one piece of advice or the most important question that I should ask them and what that answer should be, that would be super helpful.
And you're also welcome to ping me. Let me know what your topic is, and I might be able to refer you to a PR firm.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I work with all different PR firms, because typically the PR firms book you and I media train you to those bookings, but I'm also working on the strategic plan because they don't always have the time to work on that. So the most important thing I think to know about a PR firm is it a good fit for you? Meaning, do you resonate with their style, and do they have they produced consistent results for their clients in a way that's really, I'm a measure person. I really want to measure things. In PR, sometimes things are not measurable, but you really want to look at, like, have they really have those appearances been really booked that are substantial that you want? And did they have the desired effect? Part of the desired effect is the media training part, because you can get on the best shows possible, but if you don't say the right things, you don't have the results. But I think you want a couple of things. You want you want to be able to resonate with them, that they really get you and can pitch you properly in a way that feels right to you. And you always have a say with what goes out if they're not pitching you in the way, or you don't feel right with it, by the way, even when you've hired the firm. Sometimes people think they don't have the power to that, but that's what I think is the most important thing, is the track record of getting booked and being what's the word, in integrity with that.
Thank you. I definitely will ping you. I've been disappointed with the lack of questions that they've asked me, not like, how are you going to pitch me if you don't ask me questions that I think you need to ask? So thank you.
Absolutely. I'll look forward to hearing from you. Oh, so you can ping me at prsecrets.com/joyspot. There's a little form that you'll fill out there, but
Okay.
that gives me some background on you, so I'll know how to refer you best. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. This was great.
Anyone else? Oh, Stephen says, inspire deep inquiry, let people know who you are, curious and yet know-it-all expert. Yeah, I like that. Yes, be curious, not a know. Nobody likes a know-it-all, right? Most important question, what if we don't know what we want to be known for? That's a great exploratory question. What happens is oftentimes we don't know our own genius. And that comes out, what Nancy was saying, you have to ask these questions to bring out the knowledge. So it's okay not to know. That's more of an exploratory exercise sometimes. Like sometimes clients come to me thinking they want to be known for one thing, and then we find out it's actually something else. And that's okay. So I think not knowing is perfectly fine, and going through the exploratory process to begin to hone in on what's really important to you. And sometimes sometimes it's instant. It can happen within an hour, and sometimes it's months. It's just very person specific, I found. Yeah.
Hey, Susan, there's one I didn't want it to get buried in the chat, but how do you follow up with media contacts?
Super great question. You want to always follow up with something additional that's enticing to them. So you don't ever follow up, and it's pretty much all via email now, unless you're invited to connect via phone. It's email pitching, and you want to pitch a paragraph first. And on my website, I think it pops down on the very homepage, prsecrets.com. You'll have the 100-word email that can get the media to call you. It's like how to pitch in a paragraph, essentially. And what you want to do is, once you've pitched and you haven't gotten a response, you want to give them something else juicy to entice them. If that doesn't work, give them something else, or change the angle, change the idea a little bit each time, so you can offer something new. One publicist said, I like offer them I think she called them golden nuggets. I'm always giving them like golden nuggets, something new, a different idea, a different angle. So never just say, hey, did you get my information? Never, ever. Just offer something else, something new, something fresh. And let them know, like, oh, this just happened in the culture today. Stat just came out on this. Yeah. That's also making it super relevant. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. This will be our last question. Let me go back here. I'm comfortable talking in public, but I'm a plain Jane. Are there resources that help someone develop a professional appearance?
Yes. I love that you called yourself a plain Jane. I am too, but I sort of learned, I don't even like putting on makeup, but I learned how to stick these magnetic eyelashes on. So there are people, if you want to go so far, there's image consultants. My friend, Karen Leland, goes way deeper than that. She does branding colors. So Karen Tiber Leland, you can Google her. That is something that's very, very deep if you want to go that far. So she'll talk to you about all of your branding colors and your personal colors as well. But there are really great also makeup artists, because you do need makeup for, sadly, you need makeup for video. But either an image consultant, or she's a color expert, which is deeper, who will help you come alive with your best qualities. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap that up for today. And I want to thank you, Susan, for
Can I tell my last story?
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course. Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
So I told you I was a black belt in Aikido, but it wasn't always so. When I started Aikido, because I was a teaching tennis pro, I was always captain my volleyball team. I was a jock. And when I got on the Aikido floor, I was like the worst kid in the room, like the kid that would get chosen last. in soccer or whatever. And I had never been in that position, and it was horrible. And people who, what we would do is we would bow into each other, like you bow to the person on the right or the left, and you would train with them. And people would actually get up and run away from me so they wouldn't have to train with me because I was that bad. Like I couldn't even understand how to do anything. It was so complicated. But anytime there was like the guys, it's 99% men, right? So they would stay after and they would train with each other. And so I just stayed. Even when I was like very bad and the super beginner, I just thought, well, there don't seem to be any rules here about who can stay. Like the guys are going to train with each other. I'll just stay. And I stayed after for any kind of training that I wanted, any kind of training. And soon the guys started, even though I was super bad, the guys started helping me more. And because I was open to it, right? So on the floor, they would then start to not run away from me because the ones who were helpful to me would stay and train with me. I believed that I belonged in every room. That room, even though I felt like I didn't, like I was so bad, but I thought this is the only way I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn from the people who are already good at this and who have something to teach me, and everybody has something to teach me. So I stayed in the room. I belonged in the room. So believe that you belong in every room and just walk into it, even if you don't feel like you're welcome there. So thank you all, and know that you can't possibly know what you're capable of until you start to do it. So just start moving forward on your thought leadership, whatever that first step may be. So thank you all so much. And thank you for all of your participation. It was so fabulous to be able to have that. And are you going to send me that yeah, so it was so important to me to have all that interaction. So I thank you so much for your participation. It really meant a lot to me.
Thank you, Susan. We've got some great thank you comments in the chat. So I know everyone else appreciated your insights today. So we're thankful at SCORE to have you present for us. So everyone have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you again on another SCORE presentation. Thank you.